Okay, we ready? This is the Community Economic Development Committee meeting. I'm John Weddleton. Did you do roll call? Is that right?
Yep.
We're gonna do that.
So, Mr. Weddleton,
Here.
Mr. Trainee,
Here.
Mr. Peterson,
Present.
Mr. Constant.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. So let's go around. We got Dean Gates.
Dean Gates, Assistant Thompson. Pete Peterson.
Ryan Yell, Planning.
Andy Honest, Clerk's Office.
Chris Sherry, OAC. Gary Heil, Chief Inspection Development.
Mark Schemsheimer, Hayward.
Quincy Arms, Municipal Attorney's Office.
Ed Smith, Hancock.
Adam Walfield, Lake Alchemist.
General Team, J.W. Council.
Sue Hill, Fire Marshal.
Natalie Wilson, Assembly Council's Assistant.
Okay, good, thank you. So, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, guys?
Adam Walfield.
Okay, are you with Patrick Flynn? Oh, you're with Alchemist, that's right, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I just saw the discount thing. Janet, did you get a copy of
Yes,
that?
I got it.
Okay, so I just sent it out last night. So and Patrick Flynn had brought it up, so he said someone might be able to make it for that. So I didn't want to be a last minute surprise.
No, I got it last night. I read it.
That's pretty last minute getting it last night. But, okay, so first thing is Patrick had brought it up, so I said it to him and to Jana. But we can talk about that. Okay, so first up, I guess there any changes to the agenda? Good, okay, so first up is review of Alaska Slowbird Cannabis. Andy,
Yep. So it's for their retail store.
For cultivation.
Oh, geez, sorry. So the license restrictions have been addressed in their operating plan. There weren't any taxes, fees, or fines found due by any of the licensees or affiliates. All of the safety and security standards were addressed in their operating plan also, and there were no extra conditions that were recommended to be put on the license.
okay. Any questions? Thanks. So Ryan, you're.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. AK Slowburn Cannabis Outlet is applying for a special land use permit for marijuana cultivation to total approximately 820 square feet of space within an existing commercial use building. The proposed facility is within a B3 district, generally located southwest of the intersection of Unga Street and 3rd Avenue. Planned hours of operation are Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Closest protected land use is the Anchorage Correctional Complex, or the Anchorage Jail, located approximately 1,970 feet away as measured in accordance with Anchorage Municipal Code. The site has obtained non-conforming rights for building encroachments present on the property, lack of visual enhancement landscaping, pedestrian amenities, and site design standards. And this use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, and the provided site plans do not show any major alterations to the building facade or structure that would make it of dissimilar character, scale, or size when compared to surrounding structures. And the planning department recommends approval of special land use permit subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
Thanks. So, any questions? You clearly have something to say.
Well, I just apologize because I got back from Hawaii yesterday or the day before yesterday, and I didn't remind Lou about this meeting. So he is not here, but he has been a responsible licensee for over 2 years now. He's donated, $10,000 to his Boys and Girls Club in the Mountain View area, and he's an active participant in the Mountain View Community Council. He's been a really excellent licensee so far. So that's my fault, because I usually remind my clients, right before the meetings, so they don't forget because they're busy running their new businesses. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. It's a really small cultivation, 820 square feet, and it's just attached to his already existing retail. It's been operating in Mountain View.
Thanks. So I had a couple questions. There were comments way in the back. The parking sounds like it's simple, just add one parking space in that adjacent lot, but it's supposed to be paved, and some of the comments from the public said it's not paved.
Yeah, so there's a lot to the south that Not sure if Will owns at this point or not, but he was supposed to develop a parking lot, and it appears that that hasn't been done quite yet. I'm not quite sure when that CCO expires.
Yes.
But he more than likely has until the end of next summer to get that completed in terms of the CCO.
So how long has this retail been open?
So off the top of my head, I want to say, I think they got open in early 2017. So not quite. I think, I can't recall off the top of my head, but there's a CCO in place right now, and what happened is they have a shared parking agreement where Lou, the owner of the retail store, rents this adjacent lot that's completely empty, and so to get the permanent conditional or occupancy CO, he has to pave it and then stripe it, and that hasn't been done yet because startup costs for these businesses are really high, and he still has his CCO. So it hasn't been done yet.
How long is the CCO gone?
They typically issue them about 18 months. It could be extended. I mean, it varies, but that's, I think, on average.
Because he's got to do landscaping on that parking lot. It's like it's got all the parking lot requirements because it's this other lot.
Well, it's an issue for the neighbors, so.
Okay.
something to watch for. And then, comments from neighbors said numerous facilities, numerous families live within 140 feet in terms of odor. So have there been any issues with odor for the retail? The retail typically want
No.
cultivation.
To my knowledge, we haven't received any complaints of odor at this site.
Well, what they say here is after approval. They're anticipating smells. They're not talking about smells that have actually happened. They're talking about.
Right, yeah, I just want to put in, that has been an issue, because we've gotten assurances that all of these, that, we got state-of-the-art filters and there will be no odor, but in fact, we all know that it is a challenge, so.
And there's kids that walk to school too in that area, and Lou's donated a lot of supplies to help illuminate their vests that they wear when they walk. They wear these little bright vests. So he's gonna have to be particularly sensitive in that area because it's high density and there's kids that walk that path.
So you think that ML&P had need more electricity?
I can't recall if it's going to need an upgrade or not. It's not a very big facility, so it might not, but
There's a letter in there that says that.
Yeah,
it
upgrade.
needs some.
that it didn't send, yeah. I'm sure they'll just do that.
When they upgrade, do they have to go to phase 3 from single phase or whatever it is?
Phase 3 usually, but it then just depends on the power load, how much is needed for the.
And thanks, Mr. Chairman. So their cultivation is 120 square feet?
820.
820. All right. So, yeah, I mean, that's not large considering some of the warehouses that are growing, but it's large enough that there could be some odor, I suppose.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have to be particularly sensitive about that.
Dick, you have any comments?
No comments, thanks.
I have just a few. It's interesting that they say numerous families live in that area because it's very limited to residential in that area, except for Mush Inn, which is right up the street, which does have numerous families, but it's over a good distance away. And it's weird that they're all trusts and LLCs that are the people commenting. In fact, one of them is the same LLC commenting twice, but their concerns are maybe valid. I do know the only issue I've seen with this business, and it was almost 2 years ago, was they had a sign out that was inappropriate, too big, and once they were notified, they took it down. Otherwise, there have been no complaints from the community. In fact, they have, as Ms. Welty said, been very present and active in the community council, which is motivated the Brown Judges to be more active and motivated in their community council. And so it's been a net positive. I just question how the retail survives in that location.
It's doing great,
Such
actually.
a strange location.
Yeah. But it's actually been doing really well. I mean, the Mountain View community has been super supportive, and he's hired mostly Mountain View residents, so that's been really neat to see, and it's doing great. It had one attempted break-in when they first got open, but since then, no issues.
And just as note, this is probably the closest licensee to the shelter complex it's in the walking zone at that area. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's Alaska Buds is the closest. It's one of the two closest. So the fear of break-ins was really high at the beginning, but it hasn't materialized.
So they have a lot of walk-up traffic then? People walk in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people from that community area. I mean, that seems to be their main referral source. Almost, it's like word of mouth. Like, hey, my cousin came here, or hey, my aunt came here. And I went in there one time, and there was a couple in there that they gave up smoking cigarettes, and so they were trying to utilize marijuana as an offset. And so it was kind of fun to see them, talk to the staff about it and stuff. So it's been a really cool local, business. I thought the location was weird too at first, but I mean, Lou saw something that I didn't see, and it's been pretty good.
Okay, thanks. Just for the tape recorder, Forrest Dunbar has joined us. Do you have any recommendations?
I would move that we support this application.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Second from Pete. Any opposition? Dick?
I'm for it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so Tuesday.
Thank you.
All right, so next up is definition of discount for marijuana tax purposes. And we've got, who do we have from tax? Do you want to sit up on the table here?
Sure.
Is there anyone else here who, Jana, you've gotten a copy of it? Anyone else with the marijuana industry interested in discount stuff? You can sit up here too. Have you read it? Have you read what we?
I have read it. No, I don't even, I probably won't comment.
That's fine.
John read it, big number of pages.
Okay, thanks. Would you get a look at what we're talking about here? And it'd be interesting to see how the state, I mean, because you tax on the cultivate or the wholesale level, not retail. So
Right.
is there any issue on how we tax the?
I'm kind of cramming right now.
Okay.
So, but I'll be
If you
here
haven't
to
even noticed
listen to
anything.
the state report.
Okay. Quincy, are you here for?
No,
Did you read it? You can comment. Grab an FTC.
didn't read it.
Okay. So, Dean, do you want to walk us through this?
Sure. Well, it's very short. So, basically, I guess we had questions from people in the retail industry about what discounts meant, and we had some dialogue with legal and treasury, about what discounts meant here in this context. And so, for clarifying, which discounts are not part of the sales price. Actually, I would call them which discounts are taxable and which discounts that shouldn't be applied until after the tax is applied to the sales price, and which discounts are not taxable. So I guess the way I would distinguish it is, I guess a holiday sale of 10% off, during the holidays would be something you apply before you apply the sales tax. But a discount for employees, or for like if you have an annual membership and members get 20% off their purchases, that's a type of discount where the sales price has to be applied before that discount is applied to the price. So I'm sorry, the tax needs to be applied to the sales price before it's reduced by that type of loyalty discount. So the top of page 2 is the first change we have in the definition of sales price. I've included retail sale for context. Basically adding discounts to employees, and then adding some phrase at the end of after the word discount provided based on other paid considerations such as for membership or loyalty dues. So I don't know if that's the best language, but that's what we've come up with for this first draft. And then to be sure that it's documented at the retail sale, at the point of sale, I've also added this language at 125220. So at the bottom of page 2, lines 46, 47, just including an explanation for any disparity between the payment amount received and the price plus tax. And that would be part of the retailer's records that they retain. And I imagine to comply with that, they would on each receipt indicate sales price and maybe employee discount afterwards. And it would just be itemized that way. And I don't tax. So I hope that's something that the industry is able to deal with in their point of sale systems. So, and that's about all I guess. That's
Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so I've been seeing ads in the newspaper that have been talking about discounts available. And that's probably the reason that we've got this in front of us. And so if someone, for an example, buys $100 worth of marijuana and gets a 10% discount for some reason, they end up paying the tax on the $100, even though they're only paying $90 for the material. Is that correct? Am I understanding that right?
Not in all cases. The intent here was more, and I think we're still working around this, but if you have a broadly applied discount, like it's your Christmas sale or this brand, I don't know, it's a new brand coming out or something, you know,
Anniversary sale.
discount it, then that's okay. You would do it on what you actually sold it for. But if you have a loyalty program, that's the main thing we're thinking. If you say, okay, you pay $100, like at Costco, you know, where you pay $100 and you get a 10% discount or $1,000 or whatever it might be. Well, you paid something to get that discount. So we're going to say, okay, with that discount, you get taxed on the full amount before the discount.
I see.
So it's on the loyalty programs, and then if there's an employee discount as well, it's fairly common, you would pay on the full amount, not the amount after. But a typical other sale, so I don't know if this is normal or not, but it was not clear in the way it was phrased which way we would go. Is that right, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my clients, saw the definition kind of that you have on the first page here under the third whereas, where, the tax is the amount of equal 5% of the sales price paid. So they figured, okay, paid, 5% of what was paid to us. And I think this does a good job about separating, makes sense that you're giving 50% off the employees. There's some kind of benefit there. That's like a benefit for your employees to work there, right? So that makes sense that you would pay the whole amount. But for like a holiday sale or a, widely based discount, it makes sense that you wouldn't pay that 5%. So I think I understand this as kind of separating those two out, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah, so my understanding of the loyalty programs that operate in this town, I don't know of any that operate a membership where you pay a fee. And so the loyalty programs that I understand that operate in this town are based on either number of visits or number of purchases, dollar amounts of purchases, right? So I don't know that there is anywhere where they're giving someone a general discount for every purchase that they make because of some pre-qualifying event other than being an employee or maybe being a member of the industry. Right, and so the loyalty example might not be exactly apt in this case, because that's like a one-time and every 6 months when you would see it in accrued benefit. But really, it would, you're right, the employee side or the industry discount makes sense.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I like the idea of having it in there, though, because you can see a way, even if the industry isn't doing it now, you can see a way that you could avoid taxes by doing that kind of thing, by creating a loyalty program and then basically just offsetting what you would have paid in just on the price of the good, and then thereby employ the retailer and the customer circumvent the sales tax. Right?
Yeah, it's not operating that way. That would be more like a membership, right? The way that's described, what I hear you say.
What is
It says both membership or loyalty.
Right, and so just a loyalty program, it's a de minimis thing, so it's a one-time every X amount of months or whatever. And so it doesn't matter, I wouldn't complain about it, but it definitely doesn't operate in the way of what you described.
And this calls out if it is provided based on other paid consideration. Like if you go to Costco, you can pay to be a member.
Right.
So if you get a discount because of that. But in your case, they were
Talking about like Alaska Airlines MVP.
Or like a
5%
Safeway.
If you
miles.
spend $500 and you get 10% off on your next purchase, kind of a thing, right? And so there is some consideration there. It's your ongoing purchasing. It's just not like I'm paying you for this benefit. It's I'm paying you for the product, and they're saying you buy enough product, we're going to say thank you. It's a slightly different model that I've seen. I don't know if there's other ways businesses are doing it.
We've actually seen in Treasury, we've seen some examples of some sales receipts where there'll be the price of the good
there'll be the tax applied, and then there'll be basically like a subtotal, and then there'll be loyalty points that are applied in the form of maybe $20 or whatever it is after that. So it's still including the tax, the full amount, and then the loyalty discount comes off after the tax has already been applied. So that's what we've been seeing.
So they've been doing it.
Well,
this
because
way.
a lot,
that's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, because a lot of, people that read this also thought, okay, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm just going to include the tax on the regular price. And so it's good that we have this clarification so we can separate those two analyses.
And they can handle it at their point of sale.
Yeah, Greenbits and FlowHub are pretty good at doing that. There's probably some other ones that would be more difficult, but for the most part, FlowHub and Greenbits pretty much. Yeah.
Dean?
I think that Mr. Constant brings up an interesting situation in terms of someone who frequents the establishment and gets, I'm thinking of Coptic cards. I have a whole bunch of Coptic cards, but it's usually punctured and 10 to 1 is free. I don't think, if one retail establishment has a similar program. 10 purchases, your 11th of this item is free. I don't think that's captured by this language.
It's not legal.
It's not, because there's no paid consideration. It's your, yeah. So I guess my question is, with the comedy, want that kind of the 10th one free situation covered and tax paid on that free item given for frequent visits or not?
Well, they can't do free, but they could do the
discount, $1.
discount, some amount.
$1.
But you, thank you, Chair. So what you're saying is they're already doing it the way that, they're not doing it that way because they're worried.
So I started telling my clients to start doing it the way that you indicated before,
Right.
because I was concerned that there was some Nevada audits that came back and kind of hurt a lot of retailers because they weren't doing it. So I thought maybe that Alaska or Anchorage wasn't far behind and would do that. And so I directed a lot of my clients to do it. We're just like, for now, just until we get clarification, just charge the 5% on the whole tax, on the whole price.
That's what I want them to do. And I want to make sure that whatever clarification we do doesn't dissuade them from doing that.
Well,
I like the
But I think
behavior
it's
though.
pretty unfair though, when you have product that's not moving to pay 5% on the original sales price without taking account any discount for, hey, it's Christmas, 15% off the entire store. I mean, I think that's not normal sales tax.
And you would?
No, I thought we were making a distinction there between the loyalty
We
programs.
are in this,
Okay.
but the previous language didn't make that distinction, and that's why it was very, very confusing for folks.
I just would say, and I would feel differently than you do on this, that for loyalty programs that are based on an occasional benefit, not a paid benefit per se, I think that it should be considered outside of the tax, right? That if this person has spent, I think we should consider giving them that option as well. And it's not a huge amount. In fact, it's a very small amount because of the way these businesses operate. It's not every purchase that somebody makes. It's an occasional purchase. And so I would like something, but it isn't that could be free. It would be discounted to $1 or, to substantially discounted. Like if you were to grant someone $1 product and say it normally was a $20 product, then they couldn't sell it to you for $1 because the taxes would actually be slightly higher, right? Then it would actually be free because you'd only be paying the taxes on the $20 purchase, 5%. See, anyhow, it just seems to be a disincentive.
Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure whatever we do is simple and clear, and we don't create any kind of substantial loophole.
Yeah, I agree.
We're trying to make things more clear. We don't want to go backwards on that.
Yep.
Francis?
What would happen if you did a Groupon? You pay a $20 Groupon, and then you go into a marijuana retail facility and use that Groupon to buy some swag, some T-shirts, or whatever things they sell, but also to buy marijuana products. What would happen with Groupon? I've seen stuff like that for alcohol.
Interesting.
Because you pay for a Groupon ticket, so is that paid consideration? I don't want to put that. That's paid consideration for a discount. So I would say you'd have to tax the full price.
Well, what do we do? What do we do with the Groupons for alcohol?
state doesn't allow discounts on alcohol, and so the straight Groupons for alcohol, you don't see those anymore.
Right.
But when somebody buys a Groupon to a restaurant, which is very common, and then part of the bill is for alcohol, or maybe the whole bill is for alcohol, the server's not gonna not allow this, essentially a gift certificate for $20 that they spent at this restaurant that they use totally in the bar. It's a loophole, it's not getting caught. But I just,
Do you run into that?
Well, we have similar guidance already out on our website for room tax. So we have an actual informational that's designed because of Groupon. So the way that one is worded, it's basically where it's the value of the room that's being rented is what the tax is based on. And the Groupon is just a form of paying that. So if the room is $100 and the room tax is 12%, well then it would still be $112, and however you're paying for it, you're paying for it.
I'm afraid you just created a whole new marketing stream for the cannabis industry.
Yeah, I
with
never
this
even thought about
conversation.
that.
You just opened the door.
Well, I mean, but it's, it's funny, I remember from my time working in Congress that that's also a way to foil the federal purchase cards, is you go to a restaurant, right? And that's how it has an all-in bill, and it has some kind of alcohol included. And but I think we don't have that kind of situation in the marijuana industry,
I've
and
never
probably never will.
seen it.
There are no restaurants that also offer marijuana, right?
Not
So
yet.
it's not yet.
And I think there's a higher functional problem, and that is most of the purchases of a Groupon are done, all of them online, and the Groupon Corporation is out of state, and that gets you into the snafu of having a credit card, which is an interstate commerce issue, which is currently not legal federally,
Right.
which would, no retailer would probably accept a Groupon at this time, because it would literally demonstrate you are conducting interstate commerce of some kind, and so it would be an unwise action.
Is this clear enough? So the sense is if someone came in with a Groupon, so your $100 purchase would be, you pay $50, the tax would be on the $100. Is this clear that would be the case here? You pay it on the full $100?
I'm not sure. I'm going to defer to Ryan for some.
It seems to me in the context of the conversation here that would constitute paid for consideration, such that you would not be able to discount the tax applied to that transaction if you were using consideration you would essentially paid in advance for, is what I'm hearing, but it sounds like there's a number of variables that are still being discussed.
Most likely what we would do, sorry to interrupt you, most likely what we would do is do some sort of, like we did with room tax, we would do an informational that would provide guidance to retailers and taxpayers.
We could do that, or we could have it clear here as well. You know, it was just looking if we added, this is on page 2, line 10 and 11, provided based on other paid considerations such as for a discount card, membership, or loyalty dues. So that would cover, but you could do a discount card independent of Groupon. Comes with it.
Michelle, what did you do?
That work?
What
What does it say online?
Is the rate on detector?
Or maybe like-
Call out discount, so it would read, provided based on other paid considerations such as for, page 2. For a discount card, membership or loyalty dues. So you can't pay $100 for a 50% off discount card.
I think discount cards might kind of get into the coffee area, but if that's what we're making that analysis where you can have to pay the whole price on, buy 9 joints, get the last one for $5, that's normally $15, then that would make that clear. I think the industry would be happy with, okay, wide-based discounts that aren't, special for any one sect of the public are not subject to the tax, the normal price of the good, versus employee discounts and those kind of substantial discounts that are segregated towards a specific sector of the public. those you have to do on the whole purchase price. I think the industry would be happy with just that clear distinction.
That's what we're striving for. Can we hit that?
I don't know. The discount cards I think is a little bit, because I think that could be like a
Punch card.
which is fine if that's what we're doing here, but I hear two different.
Yeah, we haven't made a decision.
Yeah, we haven't
yet,
made a
but that's
decision,
just the
so-
loyalty piece that I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not something we want to address at this time, but this just came out this morning. I didn't see it last night.
Well, this would be a paid, you paid for the discount.
Like a
card.
Groupon
That's
book?
Another paid
Or
consideration.
coupon book.
Right, and in Groupon, you pay for that.
Right. Yeah.
And so with the.
Okay, that makes sense.
But with the loyalty, it's not paid in any direct way, right? And that's where I want to make sure we're clear in our communication, right? So if someone opts to have their loyalty programs paid after taxes or before, this isn't clear, right? And we have two different opinions. One that says we should include those in the tax, and one that says I don't think we should. And
Well, I guess if they're doing it now, where they're paying the tax.
some of them,
Yeah, and they're about to not, I kind of want to know how much revenue this is going to produce. Is it tens of thousands of dollars? Is it, you know?
What's your sense? Is there, does this change anything?
I actually don't really have an opinion on that at this time because I wouldn't even have a sense of what it would be, but I can't imagine that it would be something that would be huge, but I really don't know. And I'm not even sure how we would be able to go about figuring that out without doing an audit on every single retailer for a certain period of months or reporting periods, and that would be really tough to do. We just don't have
Well,
that resource.
Mr. Schutte?
I was just going to point out that in addition to not being able to come up with a WAG, don't forget this is still a business proposition. So as prices go down or are discounted, the retailer is taking in less money. They can't do that forever. So I don't think it's a huge worry that we're going to see a precipitous drop because suddenly we get the product away from
I was going to, since Ms. Cruz mentioned the bed tax, the definition in that part of our code for rent, it's much shorter and straightforward. Rent is the value, monetary value of any consideration, whether money, property, or services given in exchange for the right to use or occupy a room, that's it. So maybe if we're trying to capture the value of the transaction for any loyalty or frequency discounts provided, it should be more like any monetary value of any consideration at all. And then you could have an exception for a holiday sale type of discount or something like that. That might be a more straightforward way to write this, but that's Treasury would be overseeing defer to their preference or expertise, how effective or easy it would be to
The key we have here is if you pay for it though. So it's like loyalty programs become, some as you pay $100 and you get a discount, and that's a loyalty program. And in your sense is like if it's just, but that happens in retail.
Yeah.
And yours is, you just say you come in every month and you get this discount, so but there you're not really explicitly paying for that. So this would, as long as it's clear here, if you pay some way to get a discount or you're an employee.
right, if there's a fee. So, and that would make sense, and I think it might make it easier for the retailer because they would know, and it definitely creates a two-tiered kind of layer for the tax division to try to figure out, well, is this actually what they say? But I think that's reasonable if the assumption is it's paid for the loyalty program as opposed to paying for the product at a standard rate, and then the benefit accruing because you've done X number of transactions. So, Gianna, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think this would be almost perfect if we just removed the word loyalty, because I think that will trip people up, and just said or dues, because then that would capture any kind of dues, instead of just specifying loyalty. Because I think if somebody sees loyalty there, the retailer is probably going to be like, oh, my loyalty program requires me to capture this full sales price tax. Because they might not read it, because it says provided based on other paid consideration, which consideration's like little. I just don't know how else you would word consideration without creating loopholes for Bitcoin and whatnot.
if there are paid programs, is that are in some, and probably Ryan, maybe this is what you and Blister talked about, if you're paying for a membership program or loyalty program, whatever we call it, you are in essence giving $100 now that will be worth marijuana product, and at some point later, you back the loyalty program.
Well, we kicked that around earlier on this, is maybe go that way, and that made us more confused.
I mean, I'm just asking legally, Ryan, would you tax that because it is in exchange for marijuana products?
I think that is a separate but related question. I don't know that that is clear. Liz and I were actually just discussing, to back up very slightly, I think it does make sense in the loyalty conversation that if you're accruing the loyalty because you're transacting money for otherwise taxable products, the loyalty is essentially, I would argue, ancillary to that transaction versus this situation where you're clearly purchasing a future ability to apply your consideration towards an otherwise taxable transaction. So I think from Treasury's perspective, that's where the rubber meets the road, whether the tax gets counted in or outside of that transaction.
So, but I think in that scenario, this would make it clear that the full sales price pre the discount for the consideration for the loyalty dues would be taxed, the whole sales tax.
Or the dues if we struck loyalty.
I think you make more money doing it on the other side, doing it on the product when it's purchased versus the dues, the full purchase price of the product, where the due
Right.
discount is.
But again, that's under the paradigm of someone pays for a program.
Yeah, exactly, just under Chris's scenario.
And I just want to clarify, there's still that other.
Right,
So the word loyalty is problematic.
a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think she's right. I think the loyalty probably does create some ambiguity there.
Then how would it read, provided based on other paid consideration? Discounts to employees, discounts provided based on other paid considerations, such as for membership or dues. That doesn't work.
Oh, just membership dues. I guess pick up four.
Or prepayments, I think was the kind of concept that I'm hearing.
Coupon books.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could just say what we mean, such as discounts provided based on other paid consideration. Well, don't do a paid consideration period. And then we just give examples, only that as an example.
Yeah.
So any discount based on a paid consideration covers pretty much everything. So the issue here is examples. We could say a discount card, membership, or dues. Take out loyalty. This paid consideration, such as for dues.
Again, I just don't see a loyalty program that does anything like the prepayment that you're talking about in our market here, and it could.
Within retail, you do though.
Yeah.
You pay $100 and you get 10% off the rest of the year. That's a loyalty program, probably speaking. I mean, it may not be used in marijuana now, but
Well, we're editing on the fly. I'm thinking the word paid isn't really necessary here. It's kind of redundant of consideration. Consideration is something given for something of value given. I'm thinking perhaps we could add it to capture this discussion to say provided based on other prior consideration prior to the sales transaction, such as for membership dues.
I like paid in there.
Prior
You
consideration.
got money.
Do you like paid?
When they say paid, you got money for this, and that's pretty clear.
I think the difference is the way that you and I use the word consideration, Dean and Jana and other attorneys, versus the way it's used for an active
Is it defined on page 1, so I should follow the definition?
I use it the same way.
Fair enough.
Well, what's the difference?
Well,
Consideration is payment.
consider it, yeah.
Or it's some
Oh, it
item,
needs
it's some item or element that is used in place of payment.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's the way you form a
Something,
contract.
yeah, it's like a critical ingredient to a contract is having an offer and accept and consideration loyalty.
Okay, so paid consideration is redundant.
It's a little bit, but I think, I do think like in vernacular English, this helps make it a little clearer.
It does for me, I understand. So any thoughts? We want to, I mean, at some point, if we move this forward and introduce something, we can
not gonna be a stick in the mud on this, but I do think there's a substantial difference between types of programs that actually exist and the types we're contemplating. And we are grabbing in those programs that actually exist that in some ways I don't think should exist, in fear of the ones that might exist at some time in the future. And so I think the word loyalty is problematic. There might be another word there. I couldn't suffice. But, and again, I'm interested in making this clarification for the industry. So I would be supportive either way. We have two people. Dean?
Mr. Chair, I didn't get the sense there was any urgency to get this done, or any time sensitivity about this being passed. But I could be wrong, but if that's the case, I don't see any issue with bringing this back with some updated language to next meeting.
I think that'd be fine. It'd be nice to move it on and get it clear. I mean, is this an issue with you at all?
No, not really, and that was something I was gonna say too, is that really at the end of the day, I mean, having this be simple, something that could be, because when this really becomes material is when we're doing an audit. So if it can't be something that the retailer can prove what they did and why, then that could actually lead to issues for them, because we would disallow the non-taxable portion that they charge, and it would mean that they would have to pay tax as well as penalties and interest that we would have to assess by code. We wouldn't have the ability to just waive those. And so, to me, if somebody is making decisions on the fly when someone's purchasing a product that, oh, I'm going to write this product amount down only for you and only this one day, I think that might be a little bit harder for them to prove during an audit if we chose that period to look at. Whereas if it's an anniversary sale or something like that, where the product is then written down for everybody in the system, it seems like point of sale wise, it would be easier for them to comply with that, and it would be easier for them to show that here was how we reduced the product and why, and have every other type of discount come after the fact. Because if you're doing it on a one-off basis, it just seems like it really complicates being able to justify why the transaction was reduced, why that initial starting price was reduced. So that's the biggest concern, I think, from Treasury's perspective, is just being able to have the retailer comply and have us understand what they did and why, so that it can actually fit and we don't have to charge them for that later.
So is there anything that you see in here that would preclude them from having a holiday sale 15% off?
No.
At this point, if they do that, they pay on that reduced.
Right. And that's how we looked at it before this additional language was proposed anyway. So we were, as Ryan was talking about, it was for paid consideration received before the transaction happened, some sort of paid membership. And the receipts that we've seen where the loyalty discounts were applied after the tax was assessed, we had no issue with that at all.
So did you let retailers know that they overpaid taxes then? And refunds?
I don't know that we've noticed that, so.
I mean, that's the problem is, like, for a lot of these, the way this was written before was just without deduction for any cost of the property sold, materials used, labor costs, or discounts. And so if people have been overpaying, then it seems like they really should be getting that money back. And being noticed, I mean, if a client overpays me, I don't just say like, oh, that's a good day for me. I tell them.
And that's not what Treasury does either, but we don't audit every single tax return that comes in the door. So if a retailer sees that they have done something that they don't think is consistent with the code, they have the ability to file an amended return, and we can look at those.
So Tana, you're saying that when they do a broad 15% off holiday sale, they're charging the tax on the pre-15%?
Some are and some aren't. It just depends their interpretation of reading it. And honestly, if they ask me, my legal analysis of this definition before these changes were made, it includes discounts without deduction for discounts. The plain language of that is without deduction for discounts, and that's a discount.
So how would we deal with that? I mean, can you say, okay, this is our interpretation now, and anybody who shows us in the next 30 days that you were taxed differently or you paid tax differently, you get a refund?
Well, there's an ability in the code to do amended tax returns, and there's refunding ability for up to 2 years. After that, they can do amended returns, but there isn't the ability to do refunds. Typically what we do, if there's an amended return that results in a credit, we just apply that to a following period. and it just reduces the tax for the next period. But we've actually only been asked once, to my knowledge, about clarifying the definition in the code, and Ryan and I worked together on that, and we provided the information to the retailer, and we haven't heard anything else. So this was the next thing that we've heard.
So if we were to pass something like this, and then people would know, okay, you may have overpaid, and if they choose to go back and do the research and document it, there's already a system in place where they could say.
Yeah, we have the amended return capability on all of our tax returns, and we just look at the documentation to verify and validate why the amendment would result in a credit, and then we move forward from there depending on what it shows.
Chairman, yeah, Chris, yes, Chris first.
So to reiterate what I heard you say, Ms. Cruz, about the desire of the department would be two categories. One is generally applied credits or discounts are reduced tax, and everything else isn't. That's like a simple way to say that, right? Is if it's generally applicable to every member of their customer base at one time, then those can be discounted from the tax bill. Everything else not, just for ease of access.
Seems to make more sense.
That's what you're asking.
And I guess I look at those in the one category as a sale price, not necessarily a discount. I mean, that's a sale. I mean, if you have products at the store that are going old or something, I mean, it's common to just put a sales price on them to get them to move. Or, I mean, there's lots of reasons why you might have a sale. So we would interpret those, that would be your new price that you're offering as the price of your product. I mean, otherwise would be whatever you list your product for on day one, it's somehow you're married to that number, and that doesn't make sense. So we wouldn't be looking at it that way if it's across the board. But if it's one person who walks in because they paid something ahead of time to get a special deal, that's a different story.
But again, not that they paid something.
Or if they earned it somehow.
Right, that's the rub that I'm looking at. So you're looking for a very simple system, A or B.
It
Yes
makes
or
it
no.
easier for the retailers to comply with that, it seems like.
I'm curious, Jenna, then what your thoughts are on that, kind of boiling right down to the bone.
I mean, I think it's tough for these businesses to be sustainable when, they can't offer normal discounts for, like a coffee cart. Like if a coffee cart can't do it, it doesn't really make sense to me why we can't do it as retailers, which would, be, $3 for your 15th joint, and now we gotta pay you, you gotta pay 5% on $20, so it's like, it just doesn't really seem fair. I think that, paying for a loyalty card or a membership, like Costco, where it's like, okay, this specific sect of people that have paid for this benefit get 10% off that the general public doesn't get. I think that makes sense to carve out and say, hey, you've got to pay what the tax on the whole price. But I don't think we should, not, basically disincentive these stores from doing, promotional activities that increase their customer flow. I mean, it's like Safeway. I mean, we've seen how successful that program is.
I was just going to point out that, please correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing in current code that leads people to believe, that should lead people to believe that if they sell joints normally for $20, but they have a Christmas sale for $15, that they have to pay taxes on the 20.
But there
the way
is.
The code is written, it says you need to demonstrate what was your sale price, meaning at the point of sale, and your taxes collected on that sale price. So people, that could just be a misunderstanding in the industry. As it stands today, if you want to do a Christmas sale, as you described, you can do it. You pay taxes on the sale price. Now, if we're talking, I don't want to go down the loyalty road because that's a whole complicated issue, but as it stands today, if there's confusion in the industry, I think we should work with them, Treasury and you and others, to help educate them that no, point of sale, if you're charging $15 for a $20 joint, you're paying taxes on $15.
So then what does discount mean in this definition?
I'm just looking at how the law reads today.
That's what I'm looking at. So right now, how the law reads today is no, without deduction for the cost of property sold, materials used, labor costs, or discount. So what does that mean then? If it doesn't mean a discount for 15% off sale, what does it mean?
You're pulling down from the definition section. I'm just looking at section 12, the next section, the 50 to 20.
If I may.
Yeah, then we can go to.
There's no definition for the word discount, so maybe
Right.
that's the part of the solution here is to add a definition for the word discount.
Yeah, that would be great, like a definition for the word discount that doesn't mean a sale price. Because the word discount currently exists in the current code, and it's not specified as to what does a discount mean.
And when they retail, if you see a sign that says 10% discount today for this, and that's just a common.
Right.
That's a discount.
Yeah.
And if they're already paying that tax and the, revenue department's not saying, hey, you overpaid because you shouldn't be paying on I don't know.
They never would.
Well, and we only get a tax return. I mean, they just list.
Yeah,
what
no, I understand
So we
that.
wouldn't know what they've established as their point of sale retail price for all the different products that they've sold.
Okay, so we want to make sure we have time for the next topic. And take on this, welcome. Right. Dean?
I was going to ask, you don't see that in the tax returns, but if you do an audit, you do see.
Right, because we have to request the backup documentation, so then that's when we would see the history.
Well, let's, to move forward, let's go ahead and say we'll add a definition of discount on this. And then in the sales price mention, make it clear that we're talking about pay consideration, add a reference to discount card. And I think this phrase loyalty dues might be, we would say, paid loyalty program. That would not count. So I think the dues is the problem there, not loyalty. So if we change dues to program, paid loyalty programs as opposed to your earned.
If you were to add both of those phrases, paid versus earned, right, then it would be crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the difference. Right? And that it's not clear enough when you say just paid, because some could argue that if you come in 10 times and the 11th one is discounted, that you paid 10 times.
So,
Right? And so, but if you do juxtapose paid and earned, then you have a very clear defined delineation. Paid versus earned.
And if you do that, it gets away from your concern that they'll not pay taxes on paying for a membership program, which they subvert taxes on the other side.
Sure. I'm wondering why, to go back a little bit, why if we remove word loyalty, it doesn't work grammatically for what we're looking to. Provided based on other paid considerations such as for membership dues, delivery costs, or...
Well, you don't pay for membership dues. You could say such as, delete for,
yeah,
such
get rid
as
of
membership dues.
Yeah, you could get rid of the for, but considerations such as membership dues, because that's what you're paying Costco is you're paying membership dues or membership costs or whatever you want to call it.
If you go back to the dark ages of Anchorage legalization, you had Anchorage Cannabis Club that did charge dues for membership. It wasn't legal, but man, she got away with it. And so there's certainly precedent in our community for membership dues.
And that's, and then we've shortened it and we've gotten rid of the loyalty.
I think we should still say discount card.
Agreed, that's fine. Yeah, and I've never seen one of those.
But that happens, and that's all. Within retail, and you may not see it in this retail. So we are leading towards adding a definition of discount, and then changing this wording so it would say, it's on page 2, line 10, discounts to employees, discounts provided based on other paid consideration, such as membership, such as a discount card or membership dues. And we get that loyalty phrase out there.
And then you're still contemplating a definition for discount with that?
We'll include that, and bring that maybe next meeting, add that in.
okay, sure, that was going to be my question. I'll do these edits. Do you want brought back to this committee?
Let's bring it back here. Does that work?
I will circulate it further in advance than this time.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, thanks. Okay, next is mobile food units. Too excited for the meeting. So anyone who wants to speak, Mark, are you gonna have issues? Sit up, yes, sit at the
Francis,
table.
for sure, Mark probably, and then Russ right there.
Jeff. Hey, do you want to sit up at the table? Cleo. You still need seats.
So John, by me sitting here, does that imply that I've actually read the ordinance and prepared for this meeting? Or?
I understand it.
You had plenty of time to read the ordinance just now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, yeah, you need to comment on that one section.
Yeah. Okay, so just introducing this, obviously the catalyst for this has been Alaska Alchemist and the issues they've had, and we're trying to look at it broad. I mean, that's an interesting, creative, successful business, and we want to do what we can to help. So we want to look at this more broadly too. So if someone else comes forward with something similar, that we're prepared for it. We don't have to. We've been kind of winging it for Alaska Alchemist, and that's not made. It's frustrating for the business owner, but also I think everyone in the municipality. So that is where we want to strive for the next guy coming forward. What do we do? So, Dean, do you want to introduce where we are?
Sure, I will try to give a quick rundown. I see this ordinance is sort of in three parts, or maybe two parts and two subparts. So the first is for the food code and mobile food units and how they're addressed in the food code. And that's the section 1, 1660, and 216, 6230. So it adds some changes that basically are very much like the third part that's amendments to Title 23, and section 9 at the end. So both of those parts are basically so that mobile food units can connect to water and wastewater utilities and with services, and they can't do that if they get a retrofit permit. And so in the past, it was referred to as a quick connect disconnect type of system, and instead, I guess retrofit permits is more appropriate language, and there's retrofit permit sections in Title 23, and so that's kind of basically what section 1, 2, and 9 do. There's a bunch of language changes throughout, and the definition of mobile food unit is on page 1 to 2 in section 2, the mobile food unit section, that are just trying to say, well, it's for consistency. So they were written as if you had a self-contained water system and holding tank for wastewater, and that you have to move and empty it and so forth. But that wouldn't apply if you're connected to water and wastewater lines and the utility system. So some of that language is just to be consistent with having either one or the other for a mobile food unit. So I don't know if I need to go line by line for those parts. I could. But I guess the main portions for Title 16 are page 1139, 40, basically referring to retrofit permits in Title 23, and then page 2 and lines 36, 37, just referring to connections to the water, wastewater utilities, and the top of page 3 in subsection 4, if connected to utilities, get retrofit permits. And then page 3, line 15, 16, it's just saying for those units that are not connected to utilities, you got to move and you have to have a container on board and all that. If not connected to utilities, move that kind of on site or on within the unit system accommodating water this way. So I guess the more challenging part of this was Title 21, and I call this two subparts. Yeah.
Before we move on to the more complicated stuff, can I make a recommendation that when you refer to retrofit permits, that remove the word retrofit and just say permits? And the reason is Title 23, it gets updated every 3 years, and I can see that language changing over time. And it doesn't need to say retrofit, all it needs to say is permit. And then Title 23 addresses what type of permits they would be. That would be my recommendation.
it was possible that terminology in Title 23 might change.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So if we say necessary permits under Title 23 to connect to utilities, something more generic like that.
Yeah, all you need to do is delete the word retrofit from,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Maxington.
I have some comments too. I'm Jeffrey Hickman, Program Manager for the Environmental Health section. On the first page here, why couldn't we just consolidate C and D into one statement? Because they both kind of say the same thing. We could just eliminate the section, because that's section 2310-104.4 is the part of 23 that deals with mobile food units. So we could eliminate line D and roll everything into one, just comply with, pull all the proper permits from Title 23 in general. What were you referring to? What's that?
Just exactly one.
Sorry, page 1 on CI line 39. We could just eliminate, number D there and make C and D into one statement, and that would, because it's kind of redundant. Yeah, make it more broad instead of specific.
So if you deleted D, that would be C?
Yeah, well, maybe instead of, meet the requirements of Title 23, or, something like that with, apply for the proper permits at Title 23 and just get rid of, consolidate the two.
Actually, the cleanest way to do it would be to delete C and leave D, and rather than reference a specific section, well, you could reference a specific section, but that section possibly will change over time. You could just say, meet the requirements of Title 23.
Yeah. And then we're more specific over there on that other page, so what you got. Okay, thoughts on that, Dean?
Mr. Nuffsinger, would the Chapter 2310 be consistent even with updates or the permit requirements for moving free units always be within Chapter 2310? So if I don't refer to 104.4,
yeah, Chapter 2310 would be safe.
Okay. And then I have one more comment. On page 3, lines, that's down there, 115. I don't think we need that there at all because this is a different kind of mobile unit. This is usually a truck with a freezer in the back. So if they're ever connected to utilities, they would turn into the other kind that's over here and would be covered under that code. So this is like your seafood guy, like Patrick's, the guy that sells shrimp on the side of the road. That's this kind of unit. So that's why this has different provisions that allow for 5-gallon tanks or hand wipes, whereas we would not allow that in a mobile food truck or trailer. So I don't think this would apply here at all and doesn't need to be there.
So what you're saying is in a more permanent setup, you wouldn't allow a bucket, you would require a sink.
Right. This is specifically for what we call mobile retail. This is your guy selling meat out of the back of a truck in a freezer. The seafood guys that then frozen seafood out of a cooler or a freezer out of the back of the truck. That's what this section F is designed for. So that way this section exists so that they don't have to meet all the requirements listed earlier. So, because this is less dangerous, I guess you could say.
So you're suggesting section F altogether isn't necessary? Or
no, just the change there, just not change this. That the line, was that 15, 16 down there where it says for units not connected, we don't need to do that. We can just leave it be.
And since, basically then we could remove all of that.
Yeah,
because then it's not necessary.
Oh yeah, out of this, yeah. Sorry. We don't need to change it, that's all I'm saying.
And just for my, so this is about mobile retail units, and we're talking about mobile food units, and those are separate.
Yeah, those are two different things. This here is like I said, is a truck with a freezer in the back. This is the only category that this part, that F applies to. So if they ever connected to water and wastewater, they would feed this other type over here that would be regulated under the other section of the code.
Yeah, I included for context here a lot of language that isn't changed. Like at the top of page 2, I included the definition, the current definition of mobile retail unit, and kind of reading that language, it wasn't clear to me if that type of business might be similar to what those really not clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it's a completely different.
Okay, so
that's what we need expertise you have here.
So Dean, are you comfortable with that going away?
Yes.
Any other thoughts on that?
Everything else is
Everything else is fine. Okay.
From our point in the health department, when a mobile unit connects to water and sewer, it's actually, from a health standpoint, is safer, because now we eliminate having to deal with tanks and contamination with tanks, and we have less to deal with risk when dealing with wastewater. So by eliminating that out of the system, as far as a food safety standpoint goes, it's safer. So then you're just getting into the semantics. Is it still a mobile unit or is it a building? So, and that's for those guys. So
good. Any other thoughts?
I do, in general, to the
You want
draft.
to go around that way then? I mean, that's fine. We just work our way around.
Oh. Yeah,
Ross done? Ross, are you done?
Well, with what we've covered so far. I was just going to kind of follow along with Dean as we go through this.
Dean, do you want to continue your review, or were you done?
Yeah, please, before I get to the Title 21 changes, could I jump to Section 9? It's the Title 23 provision for mobile food units. So on page 9 in the middle, I mentioned, I guess, that this is to accommodate connection to utilities, and you see that we got some language from Mr. Singer earlier. I guess we would take out retrofit permit, the word retrofit here as well, line 36. The changes to subsection D and E, starting there, line 36, down 45, just to refer to the natural gas and water wastewater utility connections.
So the term retrofit permit's good here because we're in Title 23, and if we ever change it in Title 20, we'll coordinate it and correct it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Don't get drawn.
Let's slow down. Okay, so retrofit is bad in reference to
When it was in Title 16.
Title 16.
Because then we'd have to change Title 16 every time they change.
That makes sense to me.
So.
But can we get, what if we did not say retrofit permit anywhere? Is that?
Well, it's good here because we're in Title 23, and this is the specific type of permit one would get.
So at the same time, that I guess the Title 23 rewrite teams reviewing and working on it, we'll revise that language and to the point of 10 altogether. Like if they change retrofit, they'll change it here.
Okay, then while we're here, then tell me what retrofit means.
It is a specific type of plumbing, mechanical or electrical permit, and it's defined in Title 23 for certain types of limited use. And generally, it's the type of work that wouldn't require plan review. It's a small work that just the inspector verifies it. It's a permit you can just walk in, buy, and walk out the door. Or even get it online. You don't even need to come in the building to get it. Generally, a retrofit.
So no permit?
No, it's a permit, but it doesn't require plan review. It's not a cumbersome permit.
Maybe I'm falling victim to locking too much in on the word mobile, but for our mobile homes, what do they do when they hook up to?
They get a mobile home setup permit.
Okay. A whole separate animal, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that raises a question, if I might.
And
That is
Mr.
functionally.
Singer, you still need a licensed contractor, right, to install that equipment for the retrofit permit.
Yes.
And it's not something that a mobile food unit owner can decide they can do themselves. You know, like a homeowner can do some work themselves.
Yes, a homeowner can do work themselves, but we consider connecting a mobile food unit to city water and sewer commercial work, and we want a licensed contractor to do that work.
So that answers my question, kind of, what's the difference in scrutiny then between a mobile home trying to connect to the water system and all these systems compared to this business?
I don't know. Can you answer that?
Well, I think with the business, you've got other types of equipment, commercial type kitchen equipment, et cetera, that is, different than your typical residential, equipment that's going to be in a mobile home, such as a washer, dryer, dishwasher.
And so the barrier is lower on the mobile home than it is on the mobile business.
Yeah, in a single-family residence, if you mess something up, you're just gonna like make yourself sick or your family sick. If you mess something up in a mobile food unit, that you could have the potential to impact a lot more people.
Well,
Yeah.
what we're talking about here is the connection into the water system and the ability to poison your neighbors through your water, not just your house, right? And so a mobile home doesn't have that requirement as well. If you're going to connect to city water,
It does, I mean, it's subject to inspection, you know,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
we-
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah, we,
parallel then.
absolutely, yeah. We're just looking at for different things in a commercial application as opposed to more of a residential application.
I just had a thought, I don't know, if they were hooked to sewer and it's a place that's a full service, then would you require grease interceptors then, like a restaurant? Because they're gonna be discharging grease into the sewer pipe, which causes a different problem.
Well, from AWU's perspective, yeah, we would. If it's a mobile food unit, we would put a control manhole and a grease interceptor in the permit, in the requirements.
Okay, just wanna
And
make sure
think
we're not
about,
missing that part.
right, think about mobile homes for a second. Mobile homes are not usually on their own property. If you have a single-family lot and you have a mobile home or a fixed home, that's one thing. Mobile homes, mobile home parks are private developments on large tracts. So we look at them a little different. But fundamentally, this whole concept of it's mobile and so we're going to give it a temporary hookup, that's not what the utility wants to do. We kind of have one kind of style hookup. We hook you up in a safe fashion. We disconnect you in a safe fashion. There's no temporary, quick connect. We don't have a quick connect standard. I see that throughout here, but there's no quick connect standard. So if you want water and sewer, and you said it here, it's preferable to have fixed public water and sewer. But it's only preferable if we do it in such a way that we have engineering controls to eliminate any cross-contamination. Quick connects, that doesn't get you where you need to go. So if you're gonna stay on a tank system and have nothing to do with AWU, that's not our business. But if you join the utility, then we have to protect the integrity of the system, and that means that we're gonna have engineering controls, which we basically have today. It's no different than what we do today.
Where was the term quick connect used?
Pulled that out.
It was in a previous version. First time I saw this was this morning. Previous version said quick connect.
Yeah, I don't think I saw it in here.
We actually removed the word quick connect out of our code
Okay.
when we revised it last January, so.
Alrighty.
Yeah, it used to say quick connect electrical connect, or quick connect electrical, but that was removed in the 2010 revision because it didn't match 23, so.
Okay.
So let's look at this, and that's, what Mark brings up is a real critical issue here. So do D and E with the licensed plumbing, or D, licensed plumbing contractor shall obtain a permit. Would that permit require what AU wants to see?
Well, I have a question on D, because if you read through it, there's a bracket at the end that kind of negates the first half of the section.
That's deletion.
Yeah.
What brackets are
That's
deleted?
removing the language.
That was existing language.
Underline is new, bracket is what's being
From
deleted.
AWU's perspective, I mean, you have once we hook up, that's when building safety and building permits take over. But we're on the other side. So you have to get a permit from us, you have to get a permit from building safety if you want to do this. So if you have licensed plumbing contractors working inside your building, good for you, good for building safety, not necessarily our concern beyond the hookup.
Yeah, that's caused us a problem before. Because they get the AWWU permit, don't know there's a building permit to get to, and then they just look at our. So we've had that happen.
We're covered here though,
Yeah,
because
twice, yeah.
this permit is when building safety goes out and looks at the connection.
Does this, could this requirement be met and not meet AWU's requirements? Or should we mention in here, permit from building safety, but also from AWU? I mean, does AWU issue permits? Is that what you
Sure.
want? You call
And
it
we do
permit?
inspections.
And
And we
unless
would
there's-
inspect the connection.
Unless there's water and sewer already on the property.
Right.
Not necessarily. If you're going to hook up, if you have let's say an abandoned or an unused connection and you hook it back up, we would inspect that connection.
Okay. if I might
Because
ask,
you would become a customer, you would become a new customer. We would know that you are a customer. We'd know you're taking service, and we would inspect the connection to your facility, which you would have to do under our design guidelines.
That should be over.
Editorial question. Here's an editorial question. So is AWU in a position that they're saying there's just no way we're gonna have this setup that allows a mobile unit to temporarily set up to the water and sewer system, right? Because what we're
No,
trying,
that's
not what you're saying.
No,
You
not at all.
can make it work in some way, because the reason we're here in this amazing conversation is because now for some 5 years, the petitioner has been asking for a way to do this, and the code has said, no, you can't do this. And the assembly has overridden the code and said, no, you can do this, and we'll fix it. And so I don't want to back us into another corner where we have a situation where some permitting process is going to create a snafu where the petitioner is going to drive up to and then get told, sorry, you're screwed, and then we're going to be back at the assembly having quasi-judicial hearings saying, we're going to do this again. That's the goal here, and the technical process, I'm really grateful for all this expertise.
Let me just say, AWU has no problems with hooking up a facility that you consider temporary or mobile or what have you. That's all in kind of whatever you want to hook up to the system. We have a concern about the integrity of the connection.
Right.
That's it. We want to make sure that we have control over water entering the building, sewage leaving the building in such a fashion that it is not compromising the integrity of the system. If you want to do it for 1 month, because that's how long you're going to be there, we don't care. But when you leave,
Expensive month.
yeah, if you leave and decide that's it, we're out of here, you can't just leave a water line, sticking up. We have abandonment procedures, which are pretty onerous, but it's all intended to protect the integrity of the system. But we have no dog in the fight, so to speak, whether this be mobile or trailer or what have you.
So then to come back to your very important point, I think the question is, do we then specify in here the both permits, the building safety and the AWU permit? Then we definitely, it's clear language, the applicant can see it.
That may be covered in E, and comply with the requirements of the utility service provider, which maybe should have an S on it.
Well, I think they were looking at natural gas, separating the two.
It says in both of them.
Yeah, it says it.
It's interesting. Due to the nature of the beast here, it sounds like we've created a scenario where building safety and AWU are going to go look at the exact same connection.
But do your requirements meet his requirements then? I mean, we don't.
Well, the utility they probably do have their requirements that are different from ours. We're going to inspect it for compliance with the adopted plumbing code.
We're going to look at the backflow preventer and then downstream, so whereas AWU they're concerned about the backflow preventer as well, to protect the integrity of their water.
But there's usually a line. I mean, you can think of the building envelope as the line. We get you to the building, right? We get you hooked up. Then from inside the building at some line, building safety and plumbing code takes over.
In reality, there's actually a no man's land, but if we go there,
occasionally
this thing will just
overlap or no man's land.
From property line to the inside the building, typically, yeah.
In reality, AWU gets the utilities onto the property for a building. Then there's this bit of no man's land, and then our jurisdiction starts typically, 2 feet outside the foundation?
Yeah, well, in new construction, it's inside the building, actually.
I don't know if we did it.
But and that's true. However, if you build a new home, we inspect all the way through. We don't just leave you at the property line.
You inspect the whole home?
No.
Just
we inspect to that line where building safety and plumbing code take over.
My suggestion would be, there's so many variables too, depending on the type of business that they're going to have specifically and what they're going to have within their unit. I think that by the assembly providing some language that just allows the connections in general, provides the law for us to allow it. I think that then it's incumbent upon the departments, whether it be the utility or our department, to make certain that it meets all the applicable codes. So if you try to define too much, you're pigeonholing in a way. And so I think just in general, if you just state that permits shall be required, that you can hook up to utilities and permits are required, and kind of leave it at that. And then And then we will take over to make certain that through the permitting process and the inspection process, that it's installed correctly.
That somewhat makes sense. The place where as far as wording in here, though, it's good to let the average person reading this know that, oh, there might be 2 permits. I gotta go to AGU and you.
3 permits.
Or 3 with the gas.
Well, and then there's, we haven't heard from.
Oh, fire. We'll get to Duke.
Yeah.
Send us an email with recommendations. So I'd like to make it, you would know. When you see permit, you know all that.
No, I understand,
means.
yeah.
But the average guy looks, at least you give him a clue and say, no, we got a lot of permits here. I gotta
Right.
go to AGU. And then we certainly need to make sure, I guess, if they're doing food, they know you. And then fire always catches everyone by surprise. Who's always gonna have a fire. But I think we can get to the same point. But I would like to say, somewhere say that there would be, you got building safety and you got.
Right, that's what I've said, that permits are required, but for example, I know it's in D, it says a licensed plumbing contractor shall obtain a retrofit permit if the unit is connected to a public utilities water supply or wastewater system and comply with the requirements of utility service provider. Well, the plumber,
So we've sent them to the utility right there.
the plumber doesn't comply with the utility service provider. The plumber, complies with the local codes.
So do you even need this? The water supply shall be isolated by reduced.
Well, I think that does help provide some clarity,
And it's quite an expense that they need to know. ahead of
Yes,
time.
yes.
Well, I guess while we're on this, what kind of money are we talking?
Well, just bringing the water service in, I guess, is
Well, every case is unique.
But it's on that.
It's not cheap.
$5,000. It's closer to 100,000.
It depends where your service is. It depends on what streets you're on. If you have to go into a street, it depends if your property had been previously served and there was something on your lot lines. It varies radically. It's not cheap.
You have to hire coffee.
I know the lapses today.
Okay, so it's big money to do it right. Okay. But people have a choice. They can do the holding tank, so you can just do your math and figure out the tank. So how are we doing? Dean, comments on this?
Yeah, I have a question of how this would work, when realistically, if a mobile fuel unit, wants to park at some site and, operate off of there for, I don't know, a year or so, and they go through this process and they get the retrofit permits and these connections, this new language, but then they decide, and they comply with what you've said, but they want to go to the state fair for 2 weeks and sell their food up there, to disconnect now and then return and reconnect. What would be that process? They need a licensed contractor to come out and disconnect to get a permit for that, or how would that work?
Geez, Dean.
That's a good question. I mean, yeah.
You know what the reality is very few, if any, people are going to do this because it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
75 down is going to keep you there. You're going to buy a new truck for $5,000.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, you're not going to hook up to utilities. It's too much money. It's going to be $50,000 to $100,000 probably.
And right now, there's exactly 2 that I know of in Anchorage that are in this boat. So one of them did it like 6 or 7 years ago, got the permit from AWWU, but didn't know about your permit. We just kind of just let that one go because it was too late. By the time we found it, it had been there for a year.
And I believe Jewel Lake said it cost them $80,000.
Yeah, they ran quite a distance.
And they were lucky because they were on an old service.
Oh.
They didn't put in a new service.
And where is this?
Jewel Lake Bowl.
Yeah,
That strip mall there.
Coffee Hut next to the Holiday out there. Yeah. It's been connected to water for probably 6, 7, 8 years. I don't know, a long time. But it was a fight we didn't fight because it was already done before we caught it. Versus the other one, which we told couldn't do it from the beginning because we knew about that ahead of time. And so it was more of that was a forgiveness versus permission situation. I don't know. Different management back then, so.
kind of sounds like even if you go through this, it seriously reduces the mobility, like.
It makes it not
Yeah.
mobile, but
Getting across.
Well, it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be readily movable, you know, that's what the
It's
definition
still, it's
says.
still a requirement in here, but, you know, it's almost like you were saying yesterday, we should really almost create a whole separate class of thing for this that's not a mobile, but not a building. And, you know, which makes, you know, solves a lot of problems, but, because technically it's gonna be a mobile, but it's not mobile. So,
The odds of it being mobile,
yeah.
or intended to be mobile are very slim.
Yeah, once it's
there,
hard
then-
plumbed,
yeah.
because, you know, we're talking about pipes, not hoses.
Yeah.
So, especially if you go natural gas, then it's definitely not mobile.
Well, we have 5 minutes, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily, we can get there, we don't need to overcomplicate this.
Right.
I think the Connex stuff in here seems to be more complicated to me than anything, but anyway.
You need me to modify it?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, just because I have you here in Connex, is I had a developer, just in passing, ask me, he said that in some other cities now, they're starting to create affordable housing by, or I don't know how affordable it is, but by basically building a skeleton and then using Connexes as the units. Is that possible under our building code?
Yeah, it's possible. One would just have to obtain a building permit, just like any other building, and submit the structural engineering, the architecture, plumbing, mechanical, electrical engineering. It would be treated like a building.
It's not straight out. That's a big issue.
Okay.
Well, that's a separate meeting we're
Fair
going to
enough.
have at some point.
If I might, because we're really not going to get much farther. There are cities that are doing amazing things with Connexes, and in particular, very similar to what the foundation is he's working on, the Alchemist, is in San Francisco. There are at least 2 examples. One is Hayes Valley on Octavia Boulevard, and they have 3-story structures where they have retail going on that are all Connexes, an outdoor movie screen like a walk-in, not a drive-in, beer garden, coffee shop, ice cream shop, all made out of containers, and it is beautiful.
Is it hooked up temporarily or permanently? Okay, so I don't want to say, because I think we have a decision to make on this beyond some of this fine tuning, and I know Cleo had sent us some wording in an email. Dean, did you want to jump in real quick, and then we'll go to Cleo?
I was going to say maybe the Title 21 provisions we don't have time to get to, but we're in Title 23. I was going to get the public occupancy language changes. I don't know if Cleo was going to talk about that or something else I can raise.
I have a statement to make for sure, but it sounds like Cleo's where we go next, maybe.
We can do that, and one thing I'd like to do that is a key thing. We have a bunch of changes in Title 21 that should go through the Planning Commission, and that can take months to get scheduled. And, you know, we don't, not something I want to rush if we can help it. So if we can make a decision that, okay, we're close enough with the Title 21, let's send it through the Planning Commission process. Doesn't have to be perfect, because they will be experts and they will perfect it, and then it will come back to us eventually to approve. So I'd like to get that rolling quickly. And then the Title 23s, the 16 or we can deal with, that doesn't go to the Planning Commission. So we go to Dean and then Cleo and then Francis.
That's a good point, and I think I would like the committee's direction as to whether we should kind of bifurcate this ordinance. The Title 16 and 22 provisions get separated from the Title 21 changes. We could just send the Title 21 changes to the Planning Commission. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. It seems to show us that
Just for expediency, it's a good idea.
Just split them up. It gives it context having the whole thing, or do you think it's a problem? Is it okay to say here's the Title 21?
I'll defer to Ross on whether or not the other code changes and the one from the HHS. I don't think the code changes proposed for Title 23 and Title 16 create new problems absent the Title 21 changes. If the group's interested in making incremental progress, it would be good to move those items first and then let the Title 21 stuff work its way through the planning zone.
Can I ask a question? Can the non-Title 21 stuff function? Can we get to where we want to get to, where without the Title 21 changes?
That was my question to Ross. I don't know the answer to that.
Yes, you could split this into 2 ordinances. You could do one ordinance where it's just mobile food units, and we're not going to go into this whole modified container thing, where mobile food units you just need to modify Title 16 and 23 so that mobile food units can connect to public water and sewer.
does it, I mean, I know that we're not supposed to be just focusing on one petitioner, but will that person's issues be resolved if we just passed the one and we left the Title 21 stuff out of it? I just don't want that coming back.
They will be partially resolved. I think in addition to that, there's additional shipping containers on site that if the petitioner would like to keep them, he will need resolution of the Title 21 stuff that you're doing.
Title 21 comes back to us, it goes there. But we have time because he had 2 years, so we don't want to delay.
Actually, if I might, we only have until May, because currently, I believe the liquor license that was operating has been canceled because we haven't resolved our issues and the timelines have expired. And so, really, it's May that
We
we're
have
looking
time
at.
if we get on it.
Exactly, and so that's, I would like to put a time cap, if we can, through the planning and zoning use assembly process, through early, mid-April, so that they can do their applications and not lose a whole season of business.
Probably it's doable, that's,
Well, I'm sorry, does splitting it make it go faster or slower?
yeah, let's look at that.
Don't
So we'll
split.
decide that. So let's go ahead. Dave, did you have a comment?
Yeah, regarding that one upgrade or whether this will solve the issues, I think that the food unit provisions in Tab 1623 would only resolve issues for one of the connexes in use on that property. I understand there's 5 of them, and one's used as a mobile food unit, the coffee cart one. The one's used for service, and 3 are used for storage. And I think the Title 21 provisions are more relevant to the use of the other 4, maybe not the coffee cart one. But I'm not an enforcement officer, so that's just my perspective without doing any investigation whatsoever.
That's a good summation.
Okay. So let's go to Cleo real quick.
Okay, real quick, as I said in the email, I am hoping to see something on the first paragraph that also indicates the mobile food unit should comply with the currently adopted fire code. The new fire code that we're working on right now has a whole section on mobile food units. Basically, it's all the interior safety features. On page 10, item K through N, kind of give you the impression that that's the only safety items you might need. So if we add a sentence that they also must comply with the fire operational permit and fire inspection, then that will also bring into play the new code requirements for a hood with suppression if they do certain types of cooking. And then my other comment is it possible to get a definition of subsection B, the statement readily movable? Because we have coffee carts that are not readily movable. So if you can't pick them up and move them in an hour, is it still considered readily movable, or is it considered no longer a mobile food unit and a stationary or fixed unit?
We won't be done by day.
Reading the modified shipping container language, it almost looks to me like the assembly's trying to go to a place where someone could basically take a shipping container, dress it up a little bit, and it would just function as a mobile food unit, basically. But it's not going to be readily movable. But a shipping container can just be picked up and set on a truck, and so in that sense, it is readily movable. I think there can be some coordination done in this ordinance addressing this issue of readily movable. Maybe readily movable is not important, I guess is where I'm going with this whole modified shipping container direction this ordinance appears to be going in.
Because we also have a wheels and chassis requirement.
Yeah, and maybe
And
that could just go away.
Yeah.
Let me say,
I'm sorry, just to that point real quick. I think to satisfy those concerns and Cleo's concerns, which you've done a good job of expanding the definition of what this modified shipping container is. If there was a way in the MFU sections to include modified shipping container as a type of unit, much like we do with push carts, the coffee carts, we call them out singly. You might be able to accomplish that without starting to monkey with the other portions of code that, don't forget, they have to apply universally to all mobile food unit types.
So you're saying adding a B3?
Well, I'm not suggesting specifically where to add it, other than something to the effect of, in the lines this is page 9, lines 17 through 19, we call out coffee carts, and we also call out push carts later on in that section as distinct types of mobile food units. So if we included something that says, including coffee carts and or modified, or whatever the proper term is for modified Connex containers, whatever, that sets it up so that later on in the section, Cleo, you can specifically say modified Connex units are exempt from this
Exempt
requirement.
from the chassis.
Right.
Or you
As long as
Under
they're.
readily movable or whatever.
You might there under B add a section 3 that is movable by whatever, what was it, you just recommended a truck?
Forklift.
Yeah, how do they move a Connex? It's,
Well, they pick them, and they pick them and they set them on a trailer.
right, and so movable by trailer.
There's no common method.
Some of them we have that don't have wheels from, 15, 20 years ago. They have skids and they just drag them on the back of a tow truck. I mean, I think if we write this, it should be pretty generic, so that way we can allow stuff without wheels and chassis to still exist. I mean, technically they're illegal and we have a few that still are around, but they've been here so long that we just can't justify, saying you guys can't operate anymore even though you've been here 20 years. So
I think that's accomplished by adding a
they have
section
skids,
3
they just drag them on tow
under
truck.
B. Right there, 2310.104.4 B3 would be movable by some other means. Define it clearly there. But
But we still need to keep our width and length and height restrictions in place, or we'll have 14-foot wide buildings and stuff that are all on skids, and and it'll be horrible. So
It could be like movable by trailer.
that's right, movable by trailer. And could be others, smarter people can come up with specific language.
Just basic idea that it's not connected to the ground or sort of an impermanent foundation type of language. Like, so it ends.
But doesn't require DMV approval.
The basic idea is we're doing some double speak here, and that's fine. We're trying to make our law look like reality.
Well,
Well,
it's still
'cause we
mobile.
have approximately
Everything's mobile if you
100
have a big enough
trailers that
machine.
never.
Yeah, I think you
Military
wanna.
makes up fortresses.
Okay, we're here, let's
Yeah.
focus, because these are good points. I want to make sure that, so you made some points that we can add, I think are fairly simple. But I was curious on,
Maybe I'm not reading it right, but I feel like the way it's written, it already includes the ones that don't have wheels and chassis by the I, motor vehicle. It's currently a license. So if they're movable by a trailer or a bulldozer or whatever, if it's a motor vehicle, isn't that already included?
well, Connex isn't a motor vehicle.
But if it's moved by a truck, that is a motor vehicle.
No, there's another part that says it has to have a wheels and chassis, so it has to be part of it, has to be. Yeah, so.
Tow hitch.
So dragging it onto a trailer does not count, the way the code's written now.
But it's the most effective way.
Right. That's why
So,
we need number 3.
back to fire real quick. So we could add that stuff, but I think some of them in that email that went back and forth with Chris. So I was unclear. We have currently customers can go into this Connex MFU and order. And my understanding that created a conflict with fire code. And your email suggested it's okay.
No, I don't believe I addressed that in my email. The way the code is currently written, they can't have customers in there, but they are allowed to have customers come in and order. Typically, they're not large enough. In one particular instance, the entryway was being blocked by too many customers, but one of the premises of the mobile food unit is that customers are not inside the building to eat.
So that is the case at Alchemist. Isn't it?
Not-
I don't think-
no,
not to eat, I'm
not
sorry,
in-
not to eat, but to order. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's okay for them to come in and order. We don't have to make
That's
changes.
not fire, it's not really.
Yeah, I believe they were,
fire hazard.
had seating in there before, but they had to remove it.
Right. Okay, but going into order is fine, because I think that was part of the agreement, they took the tables out.
That was part of the
We've had a
reason.
place, there's a place in Northern Lights that's had a walk inside the door. It's a square place up there by the Quonset hut, is that C Street, A Street? No, that square one, it's not really a trailer either, but it's been there for 20 years and it's got glass front. You can walk in and order your coffee and walk out. So it's been there for longer than I've been here.
So that's not an issue then, okay, we'll solve that. Okay, so, what are some other issues here? So we got down, if you got clear, you that in for fire, then we're good? Okay, Francis?
Thanks. I guess, I don't know if I choose the right words, but big picture, currently we have one Connex in town that is a bar, or acts like a bar, right, and restaurant. But the draft ordinance that I've been reading this morning says that, muni-wide, not just in downtown, in the old code, but throughout the municipality, because there are parts of the old code that apply, to the airport, to Eagle River, to certain, the Muldoon Town Center is B3SL tied to the old code. Ship Creek Planned Community is in the old code. So they're all the T districts in Eagle River. So we have the D2, D3, the T district, some planned community districts, the B4 that are still in the old code. So changes to the old code, which affects just the downtown central business districts, those three districts, B2A, B2B, and B2C, changes to the old code to allow housing and commercial uses in connexes as a permitted principal use. That would affect the old code and different sort of far-flung places around town, but mostly downtown. But the ordinance, as it's written, also would bring it to the new code, and that would be sort of muni-wide. That's why I call it muni-wide. So you would have, marijuana businesses, child care centers, hostels. People would be able to use the Connex type as a, for those businesses and types of housing. And so I guess the big picture question is, do you want to do that? Take it from the one that exists in the municipality to, to community-wide, yeah.
I'm sorry, so so old code applies to T districts and what else? I mean, that's pretty rare, so we could exclude that, this does not apply to, because our thinking is downtown, so if we wanted to not broaden it like you're describing, we could just say this doesn't apply to certain districts.
Can I just ask though, but the ordinance says that repurposed intermodal shipping container is allowed as a principal or accessory use in all zoning districts. That's on page 4 at the bottom lines, 45 through 46.
Chairman?
And then it says as a use you can have it.
Real quick, I'm sorry to go. The sections, as I understood Dean earlier, the sections dealing with Title 21, I think deserve a little bit more substantive discussion. We are 15 minutes over, and I've got people who need to get out.
Yeah.
Is it possible to push this to the next meeting?
Well, I think that would be fine, but I don't know when the next one is, but what's Planning and Zoning Commission's schedule? If we wanted to have something done in April, February, March, April.
We would need to, at a minimum, advertise for 21 days. Your timeline, I think, Chris, you had said you want to have it done by April.
Late April.
It's a rather ambitious schedule, but one that we could probably work with.
Can we go ahead and put, is this Title 21 stuff close enough? Because that could be changed by the Planning Commission, then it goes back to us, we could change it.
I don't think so, because this is actually a substantive discussion that we'd like to have with the group, the points that Francis was about to dive into.
Okay, so before it goes to people.
Please.
Okay, so that argues for dividing the title questions into
16 and 23, get those done.
and then move forward with the ordinance on the other titles and reserve Title 21 for one more review here before we ship it off and then it comes back here.
Well, we should review the rest too, because that's fairly, the other stuff is quick, it just goes through us, right?
Right.
Okay, so we can do that, and we'll try to 2 weeks, we'll meet within the next 2 weeks. Do we have licenses in the next 2 weeks? Well, we can meet without that. It's nice to come on.
It sounds like this is gonna take a little time, but it'll be primary.
Okay, so I guess where we can move on quickly is, so we'll continue this to the next meeting. We'll split Title 21 out from the 16 and 23, and then redraft it with the changes that Cleo and the rewording that we got. Bring that forward in the next meeting, which is probably a week or two.
I think we need to play with the wording a little bit, and should we just email our suggestions to Dean?
Yeah, we can do that by email, and then after that.
Does that work?
Okay.
Does that work for everybody? And you were good, so okay.
And the date of the next planning zone commission, what was that?
We didn't give a specific date, Dean, we just talked about the general timeline, given public notice requirements, et cetera, and the desire to, or the challenge it could be if we don't get this wrapped up soon.
Okay. We good? Anything else? Thank you, everybody.